Well, thank you for joining today's webinar, Call Center Metrics That Matter Most. This session will be recorded, and you'll receive a link via email to play back the recording along with a copy of the presentation. All phones will be muted during the webinar, and we will unmute the lines at the end of the presentation for questions. My name is Rich Fox. I'll be your speaker for the day. My background spans operations and technology and telecom and a whole host of different fun activities along the way. I've ran very large call centers, and now I run the call center practice at Evolve IP. So you probably won't find many people more of an evangelist from a cloud call center than I, and I've been both led call centers as well as been responsible for them from a technology perspective, and I'm look forward to sharing my experiences and those of some of our customers today. So what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about metrics and metrics and metrics, and there's certainly lots of metrics, as you all know, in the call center world. We're going to talk about, what do callers really want, ways of measuring the caller's experience, customer's experience. We're going to talk about agent KPIs and a couple caveats along the way of be careful of that which is measured, and one about how it's a balancing act that many of you all know all too well. So there are many metrics, many goals for a call center, and no lack of them. And some of those metrics are captured by the ACD in the phone system. Others require additional systems or processes to collect that data, and others require to marry up data from multiple systems to give you a holistic picture. So at a high level, we have the ACD and your typical metrics of service level and average speed of answer, abandon rate, things along those lines. We have your business drivers, so what's important to your organization. Typically the core functions of your organization or your call center and revolve around those transactions. So often marrying up those metrics with ACD information to generate things like cost per call, revenue per call, average call value, conversion rates, cross-sell rates, things along those lines. And so our customers typically marry up phone data with those other systems to produce these insightful business metrics. Quality management typically involves a very conscious and consistent effort to review each agent's customer interactions, grade them, provide coaching feedback, and needs to operate continuously to provide improve agent performance. This evaluation typically includes customer service skills, product knowledge, system expertise and usage, and various other efficiency and effectiveness measures to create an overall call quality score for each agent. From a customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction perspective, obviously measuring how the impact your organization has on customer satisfaction. Are they a net promoter or not? Does a happy employee result in a happy customer? These metrics are typically captured via surveys, post-call surveys, or those that can take other forms such as email or web-based surveys. And the last bucket is workforce management. So for customers that have deployed a workforce management solution, metrics around forecast versus actual volume, scheduled staff versus actual, agents adherence to schedule, forecast accuracy, various tools along those lines that our customers integrate with their workforce management systems like IEX and Monet to based upon historical data feeds and real-time agent data feeds. So let's talk about what your callers really want from you. And let's do that by looking at what they don't want from you. So they want you to the caller wants you to answer their interaction quickly, and by quickly I mean right away. Otherwise it feels like I'm waiting forever as that caller. Whoops. I want to speak with a knowledgeable, friendly person that can help me and empathize with me. That can tell me the agent can tell me they're going to help me, and they can provide me with accurate information. Please resolve my inquiry on my first call. Please, please, please do not have me chasing my tail, and don't transfer me to 14 different departments and ask me to tell my story over and over again. And please follow through on your committed actions. Make it happen. Do what you say. Don't let me fall through the cracks, so to speak. So how do we measure the customer experience to ensure these things happen or don't happen? Strictly from the call center ACD perspective, there's a couple of metrics that you should use to judge your call center's performance. In other words, did you answer the callers quickly? Service level. So typically calculated as the number of calls you answered within your goal, say 20 or 30 seconds, divided by the number of calls that you received. This is indicative of the percent of the callers that were answered within your organization's target goals. So a common goal is to answer 80% of your calls within 20 seconds. I recommend you look at this interval not as an average across all the intervals in a day, but rather not as an average across all your intervals in a day. In other words, what percent of intervals did you hit your service level goal? That way you ensure that the customer experience is consistent throughout the day. Many call centers I've seen the first hour or two or the last hour or two of the day has the poorest results since there's the minimal amount of staff, skeleton staff of agents around. During the middle of the day, when all the shifts are in the office, the results are phenomenal, making the overall results for the day look great. However, if you were one of those callers that called in the very beginning of the day or the very end of the day and you waited several minutes, you wouldn't consider that a great experience. So that's why you should look at that service level across all intervals of the day, since that daily result can be misleading. Average speed of answer. So the total amount of time all callers waited divided by the number of ACD calls received. So this oftentimes is a substitute for service level. Because it's an average, it is very misleading. Many callers are answered before that average speed of answer, and many wait far longer. So, for example, in this red-blue graph above, the blue bar represents the ASA, while the red bar represents individual callers' experience and wait times. So if your call center is consistently hitting an 80-20 service level, your average speed of answer will likely be about 15 to 17 seconds. However, that's because many callers are answered right away. So those below on the right, as we get lower and lower, they're answered right away. So in reality, about 30% of the calls queued in this scenario, but a lot of the callers were answered right away, and several of the callers waited several minutes. So that 15 or 17 second average speed of answer really doesn't represent a true picture of the customer experience. I consider average speed of answer a fallback position from service level, since it's much less indicative of the customer's experience. Answer rate and abandon rate. Abandon rate being obviously the inverse of answer rate. And these metrics are secondary to service level and average speed of answer, and more a byproduct of the staffing lined up to handle incoming call volume. This metric often represents caller behavior more so than call center performance, and you have far less control over this stat. I like to look at this metric, but I certainly don't judge by it. It's not as black and white as an average speed of answer or a service level, and it's very difficult to build a staffing model to achieve a specific answer rate or abandon rate. These are some of the many metrics that we look at from an agent perspective, and people like to look at many of these and many more in the call center. They are indicative of agent behavior. They can use to coach and mentor your staff to improve their performance. But which ones should you really manage to? Which ones are informational? And which ones should I avoid? So of those many agent metrics, there's really only a few key metrics you should really look at to truly judge your agent's performance. The first two here impact the caller's expectations that we discussed earlier, while the last one ensures the agent's performing the right activities at the right time. So call quality. This typically comes from your quality monitoring performed by your supervisors or a separate QA team. And if the agent's wowing your customers and excelling at your quality monitoring objectives in terms of customer service and product knowledge and system expertise, they've achieved nirvana. So if they're pros and they're building rapport with the customer and they're giving them accurate information and they're logging everything in the system correctly and they're moving very efficiently through that call, these are all the things that an agent can control. And ultimately, the agent's handling the call is one of the key factors in customer satisfaction we talked about earlier. So focusing heavily on call quality, having ongoing reviews of your agent performance is key. And obviously, new hires are going to spend more time listening to more calls and providing more coaching than more seasoned and tenured agents who are already operating and understand those expectations. The goal of the call quality initiative is to raise the performance of all your agents. Imagine if you could get the middle of the pack agents in your call center to perform like the top 10% of your agents. Now that would be a game changer and a crowning achievement for you. Probably put yourself out of a job. and create new opportunities for yourself. Next one, first call resolution. So calculated based upon the number of calls resolved, upon initial contact divided by the total number of calls received. Since labor is the largest cost in any call center, and every caller wants their questions resolved right away, completing more and more calls as a one and done, as I like to call it, is a key to both the cost and customer satisfaction. Our customers typically capture this information through either their CRM system or through the use of disposition codes tracked in the phone system. This is a critical component to customer satisfaction. So if you can have a one and done, the caller calls in, they get answered quickly, and they got their question answered, and there's no need for further follow-up. That is the ideal transaction. And the last metric is adherence to schedule. So this comes from the marriage of workforce management systems and ACD call center information to answer the question, are my agents doing the right things at the right time? This information comes from the workforce management system after it's fed real-time agent state information and compares that to the agent's schedule. Are they making an outbound call when they're supposed to be available? Did they come back to lunch late? Are they available when the shift begins, or are they still grabbing that cup of coffee? If agents are following their schedule, they're doing what you asked. So now the responsibility falls back on you to make sure that you're generating accurate forecasts and schedules that align the right number of agents to meet your service level goals. We have tons of metrics in the call center, and we've gotten very, very good at managing our staff towards those goals. In the call center, we absolutely live by the mantra of that which is measured gets done. However, metrics aren't always delivering what we think they are. It's important to understand the interrelationship between the various metrics and, most importantly, the impact they have on the customer's experience. Believe it or not, an agent may not have the customer's best interest at heart. They may actually be more focused on their own success, their own wallet, or the metrics you're using to motivate them. When that individual success is linked to those agent metrics, you need to be very careful, and you need to understand the data and make sure you have the right checks and balances. Metrics are not necessarily the silver bullet that answers. They're not necessarily the silver bullet that answers and solves all your call center's challenges. In fact, managing exclusively by some metrics may actually have an unintended and negative impact on your customer experience. This means you need to understand the cause and effect and interdependencies between the various metrics. The laws of physics tell us that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, if you manage your agents to certain metrics, be careful what you ask for. For instance, if you manage your agents to an average handle time KPI, they'll hit that goal, and you may not like the reason why. As an agent's day unfolds and their average handle time is too high, how are they going to get it back on track? They're going to rush through some customers. They're going to take some shortcuts with some callers so their overall handle time falls back in line with your expectations. Wait, what do you mean? Are you telling me, Rich, that agents may take actions that benefit them at the cost of the customer? No. Yeah, I've seen agents fake a bad phone connection. I've seen them and terminate the call. I've seen them put the customer on hold and then terminate the call, blaming technology. Now, what they've done is assured that customer experience by hanging up on them. Now the customer's got to call back and start all over again, which is a horrific experience, but helps out agents' metrics. Similarly, if you manage the calls per hour, you'll see agents taking actions to increase their calls per hour. Whoops, drop that call. Oops, that transfer failed. Oops, must be a bad connection. So instead of judging by some of those metrics or some other efficiency measure that may drive the wrong behavior, consider adding some additional items to your scorecard to focus on during your quality monitoring activities. Focus on the agent's ability to control the call. Did the agents take all the right steps possible to complete that call in an efficient manner? Coach them on how they can better handle that call. Not only will the agent get the proper coaching and training that will achieve the same results and ultimately drive down average handle time, but do so in a healthy way. So if I'm achieving my service level goals and answering the phones quickly, I'll improve my customer experience, right? So what if I exceed my service level goals? How about I set higher goals? Say I move from an 80-20 service level goal to a 90-20 service level goal? I'll answer more calls quickly and make more customers happy, right? Great idea. Well, there's too much of a good thing too, going back to those laws of physics, and unfortunately there are some opposing forces at play here too. To achieve a higher service level goal, you'll need more people on the phones. Achieving 90% of anything is tougher than achieving 80%. So as we all know, that last 10 to 20% of results requires a lot more effort, and it's not a linear, it's an exponential effort than that first 80%. So this is that law of diminishing returns that applies everywhere in our lives. Same thing true in the call center. So if I want to set a higher goal and I want to increase my service level goals, I'm going to need to add more staff to the phones, plain and simple. Whether they're new hires, whether they're getting more time from existing agents or pulling in existing staff, in any event, I need more people on the phones and to answer more calls quickly, and staffing is the only way I'm going to get there. So let's talk about occupancy. Occupancy is defined as the percent of the time a team player is actually involved in call handling versus sitting in an idle state waiting for a call. This is a function of call volume, staffing, and service goals. In many call centers, this can be interpreted as productive inbound time on the phone. So the more time an agent spends on the phone, the higher their occupancy. However, as you increase your service level goals, your overall agent occupancy actually goes down. It's an inverse relationship. So wait, that doesn't make any sense, Rich. Are you saying? That doesn't make any sense. So let me explain. As you add more agents to the same call volume, their occupancy decreases. Agents spend more time sitting available, waiting for the next call in order to get to a higher percent of the calls answered within your goal. So putting it all together, your call center's performance goes up, your service levels go up because you added more agents, and you're achieving those higher, tougher goals, and your callers are happy, but your agent occupancy goes down, and your overall cost goes up as agents spend less time on the phone. So that's the opposing force in this scenario. And you get to explain this formula to your boss at your next budget review to explain why more agents are spending less time on the phone and why that's a good thing. So let's take that one step further. We all want happy employees, and there are many reasons why an employee may be unhappy, and that's the joys of you get to have from a leadership perspective. Fortunately for me, I'm only going to focus on occupancy in this scenario and its effect on your agents. So as agents spend a higher portion of the day on the phone, the more weary they become by the end of the day. That frenetic pace of answering dozens of calls in a day eventually gets to even the highest motivated agents. Now, your CFO might say, well, I'm paying them 100% of their salary and I expect them on the phones 100% of the day. You and I all know that's not practical, nor even remotely feasible in the call center world. As agent occupancy goes up, employee motivation and morale goes down. And we all know a happy employee means a happy customer, right? So an unhappy employee means what kind of customer? Yeah, not the kind you want. So an agent can't control their occupancy. If they're doing what you ask of them, that is being available for inbound calls at the times you expect them to be available, they've done the right thing. Occupancy is actually a byproduct of a few different factors that are in your control. Your incoming call volume, combined up with the service level goals you have for your call center, that's the part you can control, and the number of agents you have on the phone to answer that volume. So the volume and the goal and the number of agents dictates occupancy. So it's actually in your control, not the agents. So you need to find the right staffing and service level goals that keep your agents engaged and productive, but doesn't necessarily lead to burnout and dissatisfaction. We will now open up the floor to questions. You will have the ability to ask a question, to unmute your phone, please hit *1 and feel free to ask your question. So it's 2:22 by my clock. We were shooting for 24 minutes, so we have a few more minutes left to answer any questions that may come. So if you have any questions, feel free, *1, and then you'll be able to ask your question.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
You talked about the importance of call quality, and my company doesn't have a regular QA program in place. How critical is that, and how hard is it to get started?
Well, it's absolutely critical, and a lot of companies, call quality and a call quality initiative often falls by the wayside due to other challenges, day-to-day challenges of the supervisor team. So it's absolutely critical. The fact of the matter is, the agents are the main asset in your call center. We have good agents, we have bad agents, and no, I mean low-performing agents, not bad people. And you have some rock stars. So QA allows you to understand that performance, at a much deeper level. So and it gives you the opportunity to improve the performance of every agent. So in many call centers, if you could have your entire staff operating like your rock stars, you too would be a rock star. So it's not really that hard to get started. It just takes some time and energy. You need to dedicate the time to perform, those quality monitoring activities every week. You got to develop your evaluation standards around customer service and product knowledge. What are your expectations for the agent on every call? And you need to listen to recorded calls on a regular basis and provide that feedback to your agents. The magic, really is the secret sauce is just delivering that healthy, insightful feedback to your agent and inspiring them to improve. So in the end of the day, it really just takes a swim at a time to get it off the ground. Certainly, of the three things I describe as one of the three pillars from an agent KPI perspective that is critical.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, could you go over the service level interval formula that you mentioned at, near the beginning of the call? I missed.
Sure. So service level is your traditional percent of, what percent of the call, so the number of calls I answer within my service level goal divided by the number of calls I receive. So if I receive 100 calls in a day, just for a simple, example, and I answer, 87 of them within my service level goal of 20 seconds, then my service level for the day is, 87%. So I answered 87% of the calls within 20 seconds. The interval piece that I mentioned really is looking at that at a more granular perspective. So if your call center is open 8 hours a day and you broke those 8 hours up into 30-minute intervals, that's 16 intervals in a day. So what you often find is at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, your service level results are not as good because you have less staff. So instead of looking at it, that 87%, if you looked at of those 16 intervals, and what percent of them did you achieve your service level goal? It's a tougher standard. So I'm not allowing you to sort of average it out across the day. I'm saying every half hour of the day, did I hit that service level goal, and therefore what percent of those intervals did I hit that goal? It's a higher standard, so something you may not want to report elsewhere, but one way for you to see, if you want to set a little bit of a higher bar for yourself and see how you're doing. So sometimes in some kinds of situations where you're outsourcing calls, sometimes I look at metrics along these lines to make a little bit of a tougher bar to reach.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other questions out there?
I have a question. I'm not sure if this pertains to this or not, but I was wondering if you had any recommendations for software packages that could measure the metrics for retention of outbound calls.
And by retention, you mean what?
Like member retention, customer retention.
Well, I mean, that's one of those metrics that our customers typically are tracking in, outside the phone system. So either tracking it in, if you're making outbound calls to retain or you're getting an inbound, cancellation call, either tracking that disposition of that call. So on the inbound side, that's an easy example. Tracking that call was a cancellation call and that member was retained would be things you could do either in your CRM system or you could do inside the phone system if you didn't have that level of sophistication to your existing application, and sort of tracking that it was a cancellation call and then the final status was member canceled or member retained is one way to do it on the inbound side. Outbound side, there's some similar tools, but it's a little bit harder to get at. What we see more and more in our customer base is people moving sort of all the telephony metrics and capabilities to inside their business applications, so that the data that I described as marrying up are integrated together, so that every time I initiate an outbound call, for instance, from my CRM system for a member to contact that member, my phone is dialed for me. It automatically tracks the rich box, placed an outbound call to that person, and then the same disposition tracking is done inside the CRM system. But more and more we're seeing that functionality move to not marrying it up and sort of embedding the telephone system inside your business application.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, another question there?
Oh, yeah. How do you balance email support with agent occupancy? And then also, can you apply the same call metrics to email metrics?
Well, I mean, email I'm not sure I'm going to have enough time to answer that one before we run out of time here. I'm happy to follow up with you. I pulled my contact information up on screen here. If you want, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a holler. We can discuss that one a little bit more. I do want to just make sure I wrap up on time here. So I apologize for that, but let's follow up separately. I want to thank everybody for your time and participation. We hope you found that today's session valuable. Here's my contact information. You'll get an email link within the next day or so with this recording as well as the presentation I shared. And I just want to say thank you very much and have a great day.